You've got discipline all wrong. Let me explain. If you're in this subreddit, you've probably seen thousands of pieces of advice, thousands of quotes, hundreds of neuroscientific interventions and potential pills to help you finally become the person you've always wanted to become. Now, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but genuinely, nearly all of this is bullshit. The self-improvement industry sells you lies left, right, and center. Increment disclaimer. This will take you 5 to 10 minutes to read, but by the end of it, you'll probably never have to come on this subreddit ever again or read anything else on discipline. Increment. Diagnosing the bullshit. Let me explain. So let's say you are 20 years old. Right now, your brain has spent 20 whole years not only developing, but perfecting its neural connections to make you into the person you are today. It has devoted quite literally thousands upon thousands of days towards habits in your life that you probably don't even recognize to be habits. Do you find it easy to buy stuff online? Open the fridge? Turn on your phone first thing in the morning? Walk to the shop to buy junk food? Play video games? Turn on a porn site? Quite literally anything and everything you do is a result of fine-tuned neural connections that the brain has perfected because you've done these things so many times consistently. When you do any task, your brain releases an amount of dopamine. Dopamine isn't the happy chemical that people think it is. It is primarily the neurochemical involved in doing things, so anytime you do anything, your brain releases dopamine, so that the next time you do that task, because dopamine helps you to do things, by releasing it, the brain reinforces that behavior, and makes the task slightly easier to do next time you want to do it. So yeah, to reiterate, your brain right now is a highly efficient machine, and it does not like to be swayed off course from what it already knows. Why? Well, as far as your evolutionary brain is concerned, all the habits you've built over your 20 years of life have allowed you to survive. Your ancient brain thinks all the things you do, all the junk food you eat, all the bullshit you do, is actually maximizing its chances to survive on the savannah. Obviously, no matter what habits you pick, if you live in a relatively safe country, you probably will survive in the world regardless, but your evolutionary brain doesn't know that. All it knows is that the way you do things right now are optimal for survival. And that means your brain really fucking loves to do things how it's always done things. It hates change. Because change quite literally could be life or death for your brain. So it will fight you tooth and nail to avoid change. This is where the bullshit of the self-improvement industry comes in. Change your life in 30 days, change your life in 3 months, how I became a disciplined person overnight. Everything about your brain hates these statements. And at this stage you may say, oh, but Mr. Ladder Vehicle 6648, what about David Goggins, or whatever self-improvement person you look up to, who changed their life overnight? This is going to be controversial, but I think people like Goggins are actually just mentally ill. Don't tune out just yet though, let me explain. I don't mean mentally ill in a bad way. This isn't to disrespect the work people like him have done. But the ability to just flip a switch and become a hard motherfucker is so incredibly biologically abnormal that it must be something insane like 0.00000000001% of people are able to sustain that, and I would imagine their ability to flip that switch is tied to years of hard trauma in their childhood, which most people who've come from a stable background simply can't relate to. That's not to discredit people like Goggins, and just saying, I think people like that have a form of positively impactful mental illness. That's to say, they are mentally ill, but it actually works for their life, so we don't talk about it in those terms. And it makes sense, like why would we create names for mental conditions that help people improve their lives? There's no point. But it's super important to recognize that these people are not a narrative to base your life on, just like you wouldn't take advice from someone with severe schizophrenia. So getting back on track here, when you try to implement any piece of advice from the self-improvement industry, here's how it always goes. You try something new when you're super motivated. You completely transform your entire life for a week, 2 weeks, a month, or hell even 2 months for some people. Then randomly you wake up one day and it's all fallen apart and you can't work out why. And then you probably spend the next 12 months saying to yourself, man, I wish I could just get back into that state of mind I had when I was super motivated, but that state of mind never comes back, and if it does you just end up replaying the whole cycle again, and it falls off like it always does, again. The reason you fall off, as I've mentioned, is because your brain hates change. So if you change everything, you're basically just biding your time, waiting for the day that you run out of cognitive energy to be motivated, and your brain goes back to the safe habits it knows best. One hard truth you must accept is, your brain has spent 20 fucking years developing and strengthening its bad connections to make you how you are right now. So how the fuck do you expect 30 or even 60 measly days to flip that all around with a stupid 30-day plan? What life do you think your brain will pick? The disciplined one that you've tried to stick it for 30 days, or the one that you've hardwired and stuck it for 7,300 days, 20 years? 30 is a very small figure compared to 7,300. No wonder you fail to make any progress. The quicker you accept how your brain works, and remove the ego involved in trying to quickly transform yourself, the quicker you will actually become the person you want to become. If you ever want to change, you have to accept your brain for what it is and say to yourself, okay brain, we can keep doing things your way, and in fact we are going to embrace things your way, but we are going to also make some minor changes that you won't even notice, okay? Real habit building. And this is where ideas like atomic habits come in. If you want to be the kind of person that goes to the gym, then you need to make changes so small, but progressive, towards going to the gym, that your brain doesn't even notice you're making these changes. Now crucially, I'm going to break down what a habit actually is, because this is another point that the self-improvement industry lies to you about. The self-improvement industry has a tendency to call something one habit, when it's actually like 12. Let me explain. For example, the habit of going to the gym is not one habit. Firstly, going to the gym might involve waking up at a reasonable time, 1 habit, getting out of bed, 2 habits, getting your gym clothes on, 3 habits, getting your keys and wallet/water bottle, 3 habits, making sure to pack your gym bag, 4 habits, locking up your house, 5 habits, opening the door, getting outside when perhaps you don't like being outside, 6 habits, walking to the gym for an extended period of time of like 5 to 30 minutes, 7 habits, and only then when you arrive at the gym, have you completed your seemingly one habit. No wonder your brain gets overwhelmed and refuses to go to the gym. It's like 7 changes simultaneously, all wrapped up in the false assumption it's one change. Lots of people may find that going to the gym is less than 7 habits though. They may find that waking up, getting dressed, going outside and walking, is how they can mentally break it down, so more like 3 habits instead. But however many habits you think going to the gym is entirely dependent on just how different your current life is from the life you want to lead. So if you're somebody that usually walks to work and is happy waking up at an early hour and is pretty well disciplined in normal ways, then going to the gym may actually even be one habit as people think it is. But if you're the kind of person that hates being outside, you wake up late every day, you spend multiple hours on your phone, you go to bed late, and you never work out, then going to the gym must be seen as 7 separate steps, because each one of those steps is unfamiliar to your brain. It is better to assume your brain is unfamiliar with a task than to assume it can conquer it easily. It is easy to get excited and carried away with the prospect of habit building such that you want to change a million things at once, but it is much more reliable if you change just one thing at a time. This is where you have to kill your ego and completely detach yourself from results-based progress. Please trust me on this, because if you follow my methods, you will be able to maintain any habit you want for the rest of your entire life. So just because it may seem a little slow, it will reap unimaginably large rewards for you for the rest of your life. So just trust me on this, kill your ego, detach yourself from results and be patient. If your goal is to go to the gym, and this is something entirely unfamiliar to you, you must start with habit 1, which let's say is getting dressed for the gym. You must get dressed for the gym every single day, but make sure that's all you do. You stick to just that one habit, and you commit to it for an entire month. After that month, your brain won't even think about getting ready for the gym. It will be the easiest task in the world. This is where month 2 you then get into the habit of actually being outside. I used to hate going on walks and being outside. So I spent an entire month literally just making sure after I woke up I would stand outside. There was no condition for me to walk anywhere or do anything, simply being comfortable being outside was unfamiliar to my brain, so cognitively was a big step. Month 3, go for a walk/get in your car to go to the gym. At this stage the preparation phase for the gym is like clockwork, you could do it in your sleep, it's that easy for you. Now for this whole month you simply drive/walk to the gym. Honestly, at this stage, as crazy as it sounds, I wouldn't even enter the gym. Simply being there every day was testament to all the progress I was making. Only then on month 4 would I enter the gym and do a workout. But I would make sure the workout is quick because again actually working out is an unfamiliar place for my brain, so I don't want to go into a whole 1 hour workout, because I know if I do that, then for no reason, I'm going to wake up one day paralyzed and incapable of mustering the will to go to the gym, because 1 hour is too long and I won't want to do it, so it will all fall apart. So for month 4, I will work out for 15 minutes. You can make that even shorter if you want. Remember, do not attach yourself to the results. Your only attachment should be to honoring your word and completing the habit. For month 5, you can then increase the length of your workout if you want, maybe to 20 minutes, then the next month to 30 minutes. Where it gets exciting. This is where shit gets really cool. By building habits in this way, you can very quickly, after like 5 to 6 months, utilize principles of compound interest. Once you are at the gym, if you increase the intensity of your workouts or the length of your workouts by let's say 20% a month, then through compound interest this will happen. Let's say you start small, so once you make it to that gym, you start with 5 minutes of gym time a day. If you increase your time by 20% each month, by the second month, you'll be there for 6 minutes a day. Continuing this pattern, by the end of 12 months, you'll be there for nearly 31 minutes daily. You may say at this stage, yeah, but 30 minutes isn't that much. But my friend, compound interest is just getting started. If you carried on increasing your time by 20% at 12 months, this is what would happen. 12 months, 30 minutes per day. 13 months, 36 minutes per day. 14 months, 43.2 minutes per day. 15 months, 52 minutes per day. 16 months, 1 hour 2 minutes per day. 17 months, 1 hour 14 minutes per day. 18 months, 1.5 years, 1 hour 30 minutes per day. Wow! So with only 6 more months of slow increases, you went from 30 minutes at the gym to 1 hour 30 minutes. Every single day. This illustrates how small, consistent increases can dramatically boost your progress over time, much like how compound interest works with money. And this principle can be applied to any habit you want to build. Make the changes so small that your brain doesn't notice. Make sure the habit you are focusing on is a specific action, and then keep a set percentage increase in the intensity/duration of the habit and watch how you reap the rewards. You could start any habit this way. If you want to read books and you don't read books, the self-improvement industry would probably suggest you read 15 pages a day. No. Kill the ego. If you don't like reading but you want to read, then 15 pages a day is a lot of fucking reading and you will give up very quickly. Instead, for a whole month, read 1 paragraph. I'm deadly serious. Not even a page. 1 paragraph, because your brain can then develop that network from the ground up. The action of picking up the book and actually committing to reading it even for 1 paragraph is actively and positively rewiring your brain. And then the next month you may read 2 paragraphs, then 3 paragraphs, then 1 page, then 2 pages, then 3 pages, then 5 pages, then 7 pages, then 10 pages, then 15 pages, and boom, before you know it, after a handful of months you will be the kind of person that finds it easy to read books every single day. Where it gets even more exciting. Now you can concretely see how much progress you are going to make in under 2 years. 2 years is nothing in the grand scheme of your whole life, and yet these 2 years will transform how you do everything. Crazy stuff. Something I've done to keep me excited about progress is write myself a note on my phone, laying out all the habits I want to start, and then writing down all the progression that are going to occur to those habits. And it's so exciting, because I can see with my own eyes that by this time next year, for example, I'll be doing 100 press-ups every single day, going on a run every single day. I naturally hate running. They'll be waking up early and countless other habits that are helping me towards my career. So start a note on your phone or make a physical record of the habits you want to start and what progressions they are going to have each month, so you can see yourself just how successful you're going to be in your life. Rookie mistakes to avoid. I could talk about this stuff for ages, but I'll finish by mentioning pitfalls you do not want to fall into. Do not get cocky. The self-improvement industry would tell you that you should start scaling up your habits after a week or 2 weeks of doing it. Do not listen to this. Whatever you do, do not scale up your habits until a minimum a month of doing them. A month is the minimum. Secondly, do not juggle too many new habits at once. You may think you are building 4 small habits. Let's say you decided that you want to go on a walk every morning, meditate daily, have a skincare routine, and go on a run in the evening. You may then think, oh okay, so on month 1 let's do a small habit towards the walk, a small habit towards the meditating, a small habit towards the skincare routine, and a small habit towards the evening run. What's the big deal, right? No. If you take away one message from this today, it is that your brain detests change. So if you do 4 small changes at once, that's 4x the amount of change, and thus a lot more cognitive load on your brain than you may think it is. Imagine I gave you a 0.5 kilograms dumbbell in one arm to curl. You'd probably feel nothing from curling it. The change would go under the radar. But if I instead gave you 8 of those dumbbells, suddenly I'm actually lifting 4 kilograms of weight. I would notice this weight a lot more and perhaps feel a bit uncomfortable with it. This is like your brain when you try to start too many small changes at once. So don't do it. Stick to one habit for now. If you want to build multiple habits simultaneously, only do that once you are comfortable having built one habit at a time for a while. In summary, your brain hates change. The self-improvement industry sells you too much change and false narratives around change. But if you follow the principles I've laid out, you not only can grow sustainable habits but very, very excitingly, they will be built on such a solid foundation in your brain that you will be able to keep them going for the rest of your life if you choose to do so. Anyway, I think I've typed too much as it is, so let me know if any of this was helpful. I hope my advice can help at least one person to improve themselves. Good luck, everybody. Important edits. I tried my method, and it led to the most success I've ever had in building habits. However, after 6 months, I changed my environment and found myself living somewhere different. This change caught me off guard, and all my habits gradually regressed until I was back at square one. Does this mean the method is useless? No. It means 2 things. Be mindful of your environment. Like really mindful. Habits are deeply connected to the environments where they are formed and practiced. When you experience significant changes in your surroundings, it can become difficult to maintain consistent behaviors. For example, moving back home or returning to a familiar place like your childhood bedroom often leads you to revert to old habits. This regression happens because your brain tightly links habits to specific settings, causing you to subconsciously default to the behaviors you developed in those environments. To counteract this, whenever you're about to undergo a significant environmental change, such as moving or going on vacation, scale your habits back to the absolute minimum for a week or 2. Cap the intensity of the habits drastically. Then, gradually return to your normal habit intensity, but do so cautiously. In essence, be aware that environmental changes can make maintaining habits much more difficult, so try to anticipate this as you adjust to your new surroundings. 2. You can never be too cautious or gradual when building habits. To be honest, I got carried away during those 6 months where I was using my habit building method. I went against my own advice and ended up juggling about 12 different habits at once, many of which I was struggling to keep up with at that level of intensity. Momentum is a great feeling, but it can lull you into a sense of false confidence with how disciplined you are. Even I fall into the traps I've recognized before. I can't stress enough how difficult, yet essential, it is to set aside your ego when it comes to habit building. Just take it slow. This is something I struggle with because, like many, I want to progress quickly and share my successes. Anyway, I hope these edits help someone.
Copilot summarize. Misconceptions of discipline. The author argues that most advice and quick-fix solutions in the self-improvement industry are ineffective because they ignore how the brain resists change due to established neural connections. Understanding dopamine. Dopamine is not just a happy chemical, it's crucial for reinforcing behaviors by making tasks easier to repeat, thus solidifying habits. Real habit building. True habit formation requires small, incremental changes that the brain barely notices, rather than drastic transformations. Patience and persistence. Lasting change takes time, and one should focus on one small habit at a time, gradually increasing the complexity or duration of the habit. Avoid scaling up too quickly or juggling multiple new habits at once.
The commonly misunderstood assumption that going to the gym or studying consistently is just one habit is a great point. I'll try to break down the habits I want to have in my life into smaller ones for those minor changes and gradually become my norm. Great advice.
No worries, and thanks for the feedback. Studying is something I've been working on too. Something Eve found that's worked for me is having a set time to study and then doing it for quite literally 2 minutes, no more no less. I get nothing done in this time, of course, because 2 minutes is so short, but naturally I have such an aversion to sitting at my desk that simply sitting at my desk when my 7 p.m. alarm goes off is actually a really big step in terms of discipline. I've always heard that the best tip for studying is to tell yourself you are going to study for 5 minutes, and then you apparently actually end up working for way more than 5 minutes, and I always hated this advice. Because if I knew that 5 minutes of studying would actually equate to more like 45 minutes, then I simply wouldn't sit down in the first place, 'cause I knew it was going to be 45 minutes, not 5. Anyway, my point is, this is why I force myself to not work any longer than the 2 minutes to prevent this aversion scenario. And then the next month you can scale the studying up to 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 45 minutes, etc., and within 6 months you become the kind of person that studies for an hour every single day. Crazy how compounding works with habits. Anyway, ignore my advice if it's not relevant, but I wish you the best though with the new habit tips.
Thank you. I've always thought overachievers and millionaires and workaholics were the mentally crazy ones, not me.
No worries. I had a whole argument with a friend about how these self-improvement industry people are mentally ill, and how that's not a bad thing, but it should still be recognized as mental illness, but my friend just couldn't understand what I was trying to say, lol. Glad this resonated though, and good luck with your goals.
Psychologist here. Yeah, phrasing it as mental illness is outright wrong. However, I know where you're coming from. More precise would be cognitively devious, as it's just not the norm, or neurodivergent, which you certainly are after enduring enough hardship. Eckhart Tolle, for example, used to be an anxious textbook academic researcher, but after suffering from feelings of pointlessness and self-loathing, despite objective success by academic standards, in his life for long enough, hard enough, it induced a state of enlightenment spontaneously and permanently in him. While cool and interesting, it required previous suffering, pushing him to the brink of committing suicide, to force his brain into such a radical change of gears permanently. That is not normal, but it's also not an illness. It's just, you want to see extreme coping mechanisms? Well, conjure extreme circumstances and see the magic happen. Might kill yourself in the process though, grinning face with sweat. On another note, I know someone with enormous success, from zero to plus $100 with being a CEO of a 150 people fintech, who is also very well connected to many other HNIs, who keep saying, you know what the price of that level of ambition and success is? Showing up rigorously 365 per year? It's that none of these people just do what they love doing and are super happy, playful and passionate about. It's that most of them are trying to cure an existential unhappiness they'd feel if they didn't. But even then, to get back to my initial point, existential unhappiness is not an illness, despite suffering being present, as long as it's the only symptom. It's not depression if they don't ruminate over gloomy thoughts all day, blaming the world for their negative fate, feeling unable to change, etc. Quite the opposite. If you feel whatever negative sentiment and the consequence is you just turn into a different person overnight, super rare though, that's basically the opposite of the learned helplessness frequently accompanying depression. That's just an inhuman level of adaptability, whether that ultimately leads to happiness or not, it sure changes your life. These people rarely have a feeling of lacking self-efficacy after going through that change.
Yeah. Similarly, I think there are 2 types of people. People, like Opie said, who do/need small incremental changes for the habit to stick. People who, due to trauma or big enough reason, make changes for it to stick. And probably the brain thinks not doing this change is a bigger threat than the change it is afraid of. One outweighs the other.
Yeah, the problem with method 2, if you want to call it that, is that if at all, it only works under tremendous stress, which pretty sure brings its own set problems during the adaptation process. If you're not feeling as if circumstances are pointing a gun at your head, that's unlikely to happen or work permanently for the majority of people. Method 2 is more of an emergency measure. I think the more frequent starting condition for most people is you have a somewhat comfortable life. It might not be entirely comfortable in the actual sense of the word, but in that you're very accustomed to that lifestyle. You're already performing at a somewhat solid level in many domains, and thus you're in sort of a metastable state. Things would run as they do on autopilot indefinitely. But for whatever reason you're unhappy with that state. Starting change from there won't provide you with the emergency adrenaline-fueled energy and drive needed for an immediate and drastic change of direction, in the way Method 2 does. Autopilot, after all, is a cozy mode of operation for our reptile brains. So change initiated from here requires a careful reallocation of resources, without crashing and burning everything established so far. Like rearranging a house of cards, or tweaking a plane engine mid-flight. You might want drastic change, since it would initially push you into chaos. You'd rather want more effectiveness and efficiency in what you do. Method 1 is suited way better for these conditions.
This is the best fucking post I've ever read in the sub. I was close to crying over feeling so seen. I think you might be the only person who can help me. So I have started small but consistent with mini goals, and it's gone great even if I have had off days. I always get back at it. But there's one self-destructive habit where my ego is too big to handle. It's been repeated for 20 years, so it's muscle memory by now. I do it in my sleep even. I had a successful streak, but then I lost it. I haven't been able to get up a new streak because I have given up in my head. You're basically just biding your time, waiting for the day that you run out of cognitive energy to be motivated, and your brain goes back to the safe habits it knows best. I'm probably stuck here. It's comforting to give in to said habit. The quicker you accept how your brain works and remove the ego involved in trying to quickly transform yourself, the quicker you will actually become the person you want to become. I think I struggle to respect how my brain works, and I'm mad at myself for not having this under control yet. If I want to break down this achievement to mini goals, I don't know what said goals are. Take for example people who cut themselves. If they want to stop cutting overnight, what's a realistic mini goal to focus on first?
Hey there. It makes me so happy to hear that my post resonated with you, so thank you for your kind words. I'm going to give my total honest assessment on negative habits, especially if they are perhaps what we could classify as addictive. This could be any behavior you find to be almost automatic. To be blunt, removing addictive behavior is almost an entirely different beast. But fear not. This is something I've struggled with a lot with porn addiction. But I do have a solution. To overcome any automatic behaviors, you need to be aware of your triggers for that behavior. The more I learn about biology, the more I realize the brain quite literally is just a complex computer that turns inputs into outputs. So if you can work out what are the inputs that cause a negative output, then you're halfway there. So you need to be aware of your triggers. That's a first step. For me with porn, this was often if I saw something softcore on my Instagram feed that was slightly sexual, that would often be a key trigger for me, also dating apps amongst other things. Then what you need to do when you're well acquainted with your triggers for that behavior is to have a if-then plan. This is where you can leverage your healthy habit building. So an if-then plan is basically, if a trigger occurs, then I need to do XYZ to interrupt the trigger. For my porn addiction, my if-then plan is to do 5 press-ups if I feel like something could have been triggering, so that the exercise then disrupts my brain's normal pattern of behavior by giving me shit tons of oxygen. My plan has 3 steps though. If I still feel an urge after the press-ups, I do 50 jumping jacks. Exercise is going to be the easiest and most effective method of releasing good chemicals in the brain to improve your mood and to allow your mind to be in control, not the urge. But it's super important to remember, even if something is potentially triggering, that is the time to go into your if-then plan. Not when the urge is already there. By that point you're already done, you can't convince your mind of anything, you're already like a zombie at that point with all reason being thrown out the window. Your if-then plan is to come into action whenever anything could be potentially triggering. So that's what I do. And to make it easier for myself, one of my habits I have is I have a gratitude diary, and I use it every morning, right? So one of the habits I built up was each morning in my gratitude diary I would write out on the paper what my if-then protocol was, so it over time gets ingrained into my brain so I don't forget to use the if-then plan. So yeah, being aware of potential triggers, having an if-then plan, and then writing what it is every day so it's in your head consciously are the 3 main points. But remember, beating any automatic behavior is fucking difficult. An analogy I like is, it's like driving on an infinitely long highway. No matter how far you drive, you're always the same distance from crashing into the ditch, so you've always got to stay in control. It's hard. But I hope this helps somewhat. I'm sorry if it doesn't, lol, but generally if you can commit to gradually building positive habits over the course of years, then the positive forces in your life will be so overwhelming that perhaps it will be easier to have conscious control of your urge to cut. Like if you're doing an hour of aerobic exercise every day, maybe you do some meditation too and your sleep is regular and high quality and you have built up habits that mean you eat healthier foods, then it could in the future be easier to gradually remove your automatic habit, if that makes sense. Anyway, good luck.
I'm the one who should say all the thanks. This post is like a godsend. And please, give me all your most honest, transparent opinion. To be blunt, removing addictive behavior is almost an entirely different beast. Thank you for saying that. I agree. Doing my exercise routines, or any other healthy routine, is child's play in comparison. I think I might have tried seeing it as just a bad habit, when it is an addiction. Thanks for the perspective about your addiction and how you overcame it. You need to be aware of your triggers. That's a first step. Then what you need to do when you're well acquainted with your triggers for that behavior is to have a if-then plan. This is when it gets a little more complex. My triggers are from my CPTSD, and the tricky part is my triggers are 100% subconscious, called emotional flashbacks. I don't get any information on what triggered me, instead I just get an instant reaction to want to escape. And I escape with my addiction. I wish I could press pause on a TV remote and freeze time, see what I'm about to do, and step in and prevent it by putting me elsewhere. But since I have no such remote, I gotta step in while time is moving. I'm still figuring out the how here. My last if-then plan broke. And I admit it made me lose motivation and confidence in battling this beast. I gave in to the self-pity. I have no new plans yet. I feel like I have tried so many things that hasn't worked. It's very discouraging, especially with low self-esteem. It's difficult to believe in my ability to overcome this. I have professional help and it's very shameful for me to tell my therapist that I haven't improved or solved this addiction. Ego in the way again? I hate to mention that the last strategies we talked about didn't last. I don't want to seem like someone who just gives up, but it feels like with this, I have.
Thanks for sharing. Some of what you say rings true in my own experience and research. Like the part about habits being a combo of multiple mini-habits. Also agree with the part about scaling down bulky habits, like reading a paragraph or so. Personally procrastinated on reading a 500-plus page autobiography for years. Until I finally made up my mind to just read only 5 pages a day. That was all it took to help me overcome inertia. Once I started the daily quota, it only got easier from there. Exceeded the quota on most days. Ended up finishing the entire book way ahead of schedule. Thanks again. By the way, if you want, you're free to share your post on my new /Grow Your Dream where we overcome our growth challenges together.
How do I deal with the fact that small habits are super unmotivating for me? Like meditating for 30 seconds might as well be nothing. It feels meaningless compared to, say, 25 minutes meditation.
I completely agree with you. This is where creating a plan is actually really exciting. I have this note on my phone which lays out all the habits I'm going to build for the rest of this year. And then, like, once a habit has already got going, every month following shows some form of it scaling up. So take meditation for example. Let's just hypothetically say that's the only habit you want to have in your life ever. Make a physical note or a note on your phone and write out what's going to happen each month. So month 1 May, 30 seconds meditation. June, 45 seconds meditation. July, 1 minute meditation. August, 1 minute 30 seconds meditation. September, 2 minutes 30 seconds meditation. October, 4 minutes meditation. November, 6 minutes meditation. December, 9 minutes meditation. January 25th, 13 minutes meditation. February 25th, 17 minutes meditation. March 25th, 22 minutes meditation. Writing this out is exciting cause you can see how small the intervals are each month. Which means you know it's highly likely you can stick to these intervals, and if not, oh well, you can make the intervals smaller. But not only is it exciting cause you know you can actually commit to this habit from now on, and you can see the roadmap for the future of when you're gonna reach 25 minutes. It's not just that. But it's the knowledge that it is precisely because you spent 30 seconds meditating that you ever got to unlock 45 seconds, that you ever got to unlock 25 minutes. And these are habits that are built so strongly and sustainably you will literally do them for the rest of your life if you choose to. They are that solid. So without the 30 seconds habit you will likely never become the type of person that meditated for the rest of their life. It won't happen. So the 30 seconds thing shouldn't be looked down at. It's of vital importance. The 30 seconds meditation is the difference between you being a person who meditates and being a person who doesn't. It may not be important in terms of what you're immediately getting from it. Like you won't get any peace immediately from it directly. But this is my point, you have to kill the ego. And in fact your brain, however, is getting an indescribably large benefit from developing the habit. All your brain sees is that you are intentionally setting aside time towards this thing, so it's going to reinforce that thing if you do it more and more. So yeah, a lot of waffling there, but you can see it's extremely important in lots of ways to do the 30 seconds LOL.
The ego is what I struggle with the most, and I don't know how I can overcome that. I can't help comparing myself to others because everyone does. No one will hire me because I did amazing progress, they will only hire me if I am better than the other applicants. Everything you do is judged in comparison to others. So even if there is no way around starting from zero, it's so uncomfortable being confronted with your own ineptitude. Ironically, this just leads me to procrastinate and fall even more behind. I feel like the only way I could have overcome this is if I was young again, when everyone else was also at zero and there were no expectations, but when I was young I sadly only played video games all day. If you managed to overcome your ego, what was your strategy?
It's a great point you raise. Comparing yourself to others. The reason I drum the whole, kill the ego thing, is because in order to actually progress you need to make such ridiculously small steps of progress, that being okay with that means swallowing your pride a bit and accepting this is the only way you'll actually succeed. Our egos thrive in the potential of what we could have been if we actually tried. And it's a nice position to be in, where you say to yourself, I could be great if I want, or am going to be great someday, but make no steps to actually achieving any of it. It's all your ego speaking. Being great, or becoming the version of yourself you want to become, actually requires this swallowing of pride. Anyway, back to your central concern, which is how do you kill this element of ego? Well, firstly, I think it's important to remember that the people in your life that you think have it all together, only have it all together because they just so happen most likely to have grown up in an environment that tended itself towards developing useful life skills. Like take for example, let's say you have a friend who runs every day like 10K. Super impressive, right? And you just think to yourself, damn, if only I was like him, had his discipline. The truth is, that guy is probably only good at running because he's always done some form of running. That is, his brain has been wired from a young age to do that. Either because his parents were athletic and they did athletic things together, or he was encouraged to play sports and was guided by his parents to play sports etc. etc. But that regularity of running every day didn't just emerge as some innate talent, it also didn't emerge as some great leap of willpower. 99.999999999% people in the world have very, very little willpower. They just have habits that are either good or bad. So my point in all of this is, people around you who are on objective measures killing it way harder than you are, just so happen to be there because of their repetitive habits. Often of which weren't their own choice, but choices of their parents. Not always, but often. So my point is you're on level 1 of your habit whilst they are on level 100. And that's okay because they were level 1 at some point, they just did it a few years before you, and if that was in childhood then they didn't even do it consciously. I'm kinda waffling here but you get my point. If it helps, I guess my point is, you and everyone else is on a level playing field when it comes to ineptitude. There's nothing that makes you or anyone else better inherently. It's not that they have more discipline or a stronger will, it's just they have the same habits you have, they've just been doing them longer. Oh yeah, a completely separate point about killing the ego BTW, not to be super cliché but psilocybin mushrooms are very effective, not that I actively recommend those to people. I'm not a psychedelic type of person at all, I'm very anti-taking drug anti-smoking kinda guy. But I researched the therapeutic use of psilocybin magic mushrooms and there's robust evidence for using them when it comes to ego. If you know anything about magic mushrooms and don't want to patronize you, but basically in the brain, there is a network called the default mode network, it's entirely responsible for your ego. This network is shaped by your identity, who you think you are, what you value, etc., all elements of ego. And psilocybin is one of the few substances that essentially disrupts this network entirely, which allows you to have a look at your memories without this ego filter being there, for the first time ever. So yeah, psilocybin's super useful, but I'm obviously not going to be massively advocating it as I know the taboo with those substances. Anyway, good luck, hope this long message helps, lol.
This is eye-opening. Questions. How do you determine the right size for each small step when building a habit? Knowing myself, I feel I'll get frustrated that I'm progressing too slow. I tend to be fueled by results, and when I don't see them my motivation drops. Did that happen to you? And what did you do about it?
1. The right size of habit is dependent on how disciplined you are naturally, how familiar you are with the task you're doing and what state of mind you're in. Like if you're in a bad place, then make the steps ridiculously minuscule. Essentially, to determine the size of a step, you have to ask yourself, if I was having the worst day in my life, like the worst possible day, what's the maximum size of the task I could achieve on that day, when I am full of sadness and lacking any motivation? 2. See, being frustrated by results is all ego. This is the point. In order to actually get the results you want, ironically, you have to kill your ego around results. I know this is easier said than done. I recommend, if you're having issues with progress and feeling like you're moving too slowly, write down a whole year's worth of any habit you're trying to build. Like, this is a game changer for me because I can literally see with my own eyes how tiny changes each month mean. In a year from now I'm going to comfortably be doing 100 press-ups every single day for the rest of my life. And knowing that's all coming about because this month I'm doing 5 press-ups is super exciting, cause without the 5 press-ups I know I'll never reach the 100.
Any tips or advices on breaking down the habits to wake up early in the morning?
Yes, this is actually the first habit I fixed. It's quite a unique one though, because at first sleeping seems rather arbitrary. You either wake up on time or you don't. But this is how I did it. I bent one of my rules in order to achieve this, I will admit. First thing first, it is incredibly important you download the app, Alarmy. If you don't know already, Alarmy is free and it gamifies your alarm so that you have to do some form of task for the alarm to turn off, by which point hopefully you are already awake. Now, I fucking hated Alarmy when I first got it. It was useless. That's because I used it in the wrong mode. It has maths mode where you complete a maths problem for your alarm to turn off. It has a shake your phone mode where you have to shake it a certain amount of time to turn off, a puzzle mode, etc. All these modes are not useful at all. Because if you're like me, I hate waking up on time. Anyway, there's this one mode on Alarmy, which is the photo mode. Basically, in order to turn off the alarm, you have a default photo which you set to anything in real life, and then when the alarm goes off, you have to recreate your default photo every day. So for me, I made my default photo a photo of my coffee maker in my kitchen. So every morning I have to go to my kitchen with my phone, get my coffee maker out, position it exactly like it is in my default photo, and take a snap of it for the alarm to go off. This worked really well for me because it meant I had to leave my bedroom and actually go to the kitchen in order to turn off my alarm clock, and then I already had my coffee in front of me, so it made it really hard for me to simply turn off the alarm and quickly go back to bed. By the way, like any habit, you must do it every day. No cheat days. No weekends off. So you must keep your sleep routine exactly the same every day, otherwise it won't stick. I also have a pre-alarm 5 minutes before using Alarmy's shake mode. So this means I have to shake my phone in order for the alarm to turn off. The logic in my head is if I shake my phone, then this will wake my brain up a bit more before my actual alarm goes off. So quite comically, I set the shake mode to 150 shakes, so I have to shake my phone 150 times before the alarm turns off. So by the time my coffee photo alarm goes off, I'm actually fairly awakened even if I have gone back to sleep. To make it even easier, every single day you wake up, you can reduce the alarm time by 10 to 15 minutes. So like if you wake up normally at 11 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., then day 1 set your alarm to 11 a.m., then day 2 set the alarm to 10.45, then 10.30 the next day, etc., etc. That way the transition to a better wake-up time is easier. If you reduce your sleep time by 15 minutes a day, then after a mere 16 days you would get your sleep time down to 7 a.m. Obviously take it slower and make smaller intervals if this is too much. Anyway, that's how I fixed it.
Good points. It's like you have to break it down to details so that you can finish it with ease. Just a question. If I've already been working out for like 2 weeks, feel good about it, in this situation, should I stop working out or whatever changes that I'm making to embrace little things from the beginning? Not going against you, I try to learn from everybody, and people can do what works for them. Like, do I have to stop studying now, for 3-4 months and then return to it later? How it's gonna affect my life? I think that this is kinda similar to small goals. Setting smaller goals so that you can easily achieve, right? Like explaining in order to do this, you have to do these steps. I love Goggins, respect Tate, they all have something that you can learn from, but I won't try to be like them. Instead, Alex Hormozi is actually a great guy, with great contents about success, quite similar to this.
No worries, mate, and you make some great points. I think keep up whatever you're doing as it is. Just be aware it probably will fall away, but that's okay. Because now with this knowledge, you can look at your gym habit and assess what you were doing that was too out of your comfort zone for your body, and then scale back the habit to a more suitable level. But that's only if it fails. If you don't fail and you continue loving the gym, then great man, keep it up. Don't let my advice stop you with your progress. It's just that if you stop making progress, you can come back to this and have a game plan of where to go. Good luck.
Great post. I also recently discovered how powerful tiny habits can be. I've worked out at home for several years now and bought a gym membership at the start of the year, and I've only been to the gym once. There's a lot of resistance, like having to drive somewhere to work out, working out in front of other people, not having the time / having to wake up early, etc. I thought that going the first time would make it easy to go the next time, but it didn't. In fact, it made it harder. I realize there are a lot of habits involved here and that I should break it down into smaller habits that are easier to do. Also, whilst some of those tiny habits might feel like a waste of time with zero results, like going to the gym and not working out, the foot in the door is so powerful. Once you get started in a small way, you end up doing the thing anyway. A good general tip for motivation is to just do something towards that thing. Action breeds motivation, but making the action too hard lessens it. I've also been trying to apply this to social skills. I've been socially anxious a very long time, physically, not mentally, almost out of habit, because I used to be super mentally anxious, and I'm focusing on the very small ways that I can change my behavior. Sometimes it's really frustrating when you put in a lot of effort and there's not much progress, so I keep reminding myself that this is at least 10 years of engaging in antisocial behavior and thoughts that I'm trying to change here, definitely not gonna happen overnight.
I wanted to share this from the book Mini Habits, that talks exactly about what this brilliant post has said. Use the why drill. Let's say you want to incorporate reading into your daily routine. Start by asking yourself, why do I want to read every day? Your initial answer might be something like, to learn more about personal finance. Not stopping there, ask, why, again, why do I want to learn more about personal finance? You might respond with, to manage my money better. Keep drilling down with, why, until you reach a deeply personal core reason that compels you emotionally, such as, I want to ensure I can provide for my family and retire comfortably. This depth of reasoning cements your commitment to the habit. And why is this important to know? It ensures that the habit is something you truly want for yourself, not just because it's what others expect or because everyone else is doing it. Recognizing this helps you focus on habits that genuinely improve your life and align with your personal goals. This approach not only leads to more sustainable habits but also to a more fulfilling personal growth journey. It connects your habit to your deeper values and long-term goals, which is crucial for sustained motivation. When you understand the profound reasons behind wanting to adopt a new behavior, it becomes more than just a task, it becomes a meaningful part of your life strategy. This deep personal connection makes it far easier to commit to the habit daily, even when your initial enthusiasm wanes or when obstacles arise. By linking the habit to your core values, you ensure that it bears significance, which in turn fuels your dedication and resilience in maintaining it.
Hey big bro from the future. I have a question. How did you go about handling your porn addiction while you were fixing your sleeping habits first? Can you please explain in detail because me and others as well are stuck with this problem? Also, thanks a billion for saving my future life with this post folded ends light skin tone.
Part 1. Hey man, thanks for the question. So basically I didn't fix my P*RN addictions simultaneously with my sleep. I treated them as separate issues, because one is about building good habits and the other is about quitting bad habits, and the processes for fixing both are very different. My P*RN addiction is something that I really have struggled with in the past. Like really struggled, felt like I tried every single method, heard every single piece of advice and got nowhere. Truth is, no piece of advice will be compelling enough to quit. Literally no advice. No quote, no anything will help in the long term, at least if you're like me it won't. I have 10 years of addiction being hardwired into my reward system in my brain, like it's so entrenched that a few words of motivation are pretty much meaningless in comparison to these strong neural networks Eve built consistently towards P*RN addiction. But there is still hope. The way I conceptualize my addiction is as follows. Normal state of mind dash. I come across a potential trigger dash. I ignore the trigger and don't really think about its impact dash. My brain then decides, in response to the trigger, that watching P*RN would be exciting dash. Then a very weak voice in my head says, "You probably shouldn't do that." But I bat that voice away because I don't care, am already going through the motions, and my zombie P*RN brain has already taken over. I call it my zombie brain because, well, it's like at that stage I have no active control over my brain, and no way of swaying it off course. Then I watch P*RN. That's how it goes for me. So crucially, I realized there were a series of key triggers that would set off my addiction side of my brain. So in order to quit, I have to disrupt the triggers so that they wouldn't lead to my addiction brain being in control. Kill the addiction at its source basically, before it gets too strong. What does this mean in practice? It means whenever you come across something that you know is a potential trigger, before you let that trigger take hold of you in any way, you say to yourself, oh shit, this could potentially be a P*RN trigger, and then you do something that will interrupt the addictive pattern that typically follows from the trigger. It is essential that you go, oh shit, this could be a trigger whether or not you really noticed the trigger or engaged with it. Because whilst you may have not engaged with it, and you may think you're safe, your subconscious brain probably did notice it, and it's only a minute or two away from telling you that you should watch P*RN, by which point it will likely be too late. So you need to make a long list of all the specific triggers that apply to you.
Love this. The only problem/suggestion I have is this, and I would love your thoughts. Let's say someone is on month 1 or 2 of the gym example, and taking it slow, i.e. only showing up to the gym each day. Great progress. Let's say on day 8 of month 2 you feel highly motivated to go into the gym and work out for an hour, instead of just showing up. Why not go do the 1-hour workout, then the following day go back to the routine of just showing up to the gym? In your description, your reason for not doing the 1-hour workout was because one day you'll wake up and the 1-hour workout will be too big of a mountain and you will fall off. But in this example, you only do the workout when you're highly motivated, and the other days you stick to your current plan. This way you actually progress physically and mentally in a positive direction while also building the smaller daily habits. I think compromise will help people see the progress while building the micro habits, providing even more positive feedback. Just got to be careful not to move too quickly and stay focused on the small tasks every day.
I think that's completely fine. It's okay to do more on days you feel like it as long as you are acutely aware that you are going above and beyond and this is not the usual. So yeah, this is absolutely fine. But I can only talk about myself, and I know that if I am super motivated, then ITLL lasts like a week or 2 or even 3, and if I go above and beyond for 3 weeks, even if technically my required habit threshold has always been lower, I'll subconsciously expect myself to do more, and then when I lose that motivation I'll feel bad and like a failure and won't do it at all. But that's just me, and I know others will of course differ in their mentality. I also think there's a degree to which my approach is entirely not focused on the ends of the habit. Like I could not care less about results, because I know the results will occur in like a year or 2 as long as I keep on track. So things like the gym for me, I'm not in any rush to get anywhere. I completely detach myself from the end goal because I know this habit that I'm building is literally one I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, so I have the rest of my life to perfect my figure as the habit progresses. But anyway, those are my thoughts, but long story short, I think your method is good. No problem with it, thumbs up.
I definitely noticed that I get caught in the trap of just thinking about all the changes I want to make in my life. I'll be laying in bed at 3 a.m. and I'm looking at all the clothes I'm gonna wear when I'm skinny, or all the organizational stuff when I clean up and organize everything, or I'll think about how good my hair will look when I start taking care of myself and buying products that actually work. When in reality I'm laying in bed after eating DoorDash when I wasn't even hungry, overweight, haven't put laundry away in days, random stuff everywhere, dirty hair that I haven't even tried to style in days. My therapist says I struggle with all or nothing or black/white mindsets, which I think also stems from my perfectionism. Except I obviously can't be perfect, so I fail at it, and then I tell myself that it's not worth trying if I'm just going to fail. So I just cycle this over and over and over. I've been going to the gym almost every day for the last couple months, but I'm not watching my eating, so I'm not seeing much progress, and then I get discouraged. Or I'll skip a day and then feel like a lazy slob and that I'll just be this way forever.
It helped me to recognize that the definition of a perfect routine is entirely dependent on your brain's capabilities in a given time in your life. Yes, technically speaking, it is neuroscientifically optimal to wake up early, go on a walk and take in the sunlight to regulate hormones and your circadian rhythm, and then do some form of exercise, but this isn't optimal if you aren't in a mental position to do these things. Yes, eating unprocessed foods and getting adequate fiber, protein, and water per day are optimal to long-term health. But if you eat junk food all the time and have done for a long time, chances are this isn't optimal for you. Because at the end of the day, what is optimal or perfect for you is whatever you are mentally capable of doing. If you aren't capable of achieving something, then it's by definition not perfect, because it's physically unattainable on a regular basis in your current life situation. So perfection for someone out of shape and with poor eating habits may be simply integrating a piece of protein at 1 meal per day for a month. Then perhaps after a month, that person can integrate a piece of protein at 2 meals per day, again over a month. Then the next month, every meal of the day has to integrate protein. Then perhaps month 4 you integrate 1 portion of vegetables into 1 meal per day, etc., etc., etc. Eventually over time you become the healthy in shape person because your habits have been gradually optimized to what your mental limits are. The starting point of only integrating 1 piece of protein in 1 meal is perfect for you in that given time. If this was a vague ramble, but as someone that also suffers with all or nothing mentality, redefining perfection helped me actually get on track to achieve what I want to achieve. Because ultimately, if it can't be done, it's clearly not perfect. If NASA is designing a way to get to space, it would be perfect if humans could just fly there with no oxygen mask or spacesuit. But they can't, so this isn't actually perfect, this is just a fantasy. It's just the same with your life. Not sure that was the best analogy, but hope it makes sense. Anyway, good luck. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and you can change your all or nothing mentality. It's great that you've been going to the gym. Keep it up, and perhaps redefine perfection for your life.